Trading cricket, racing and football, you're listening to the Sports Trader Podcast, brought to you by thesportstrader.com.
Morning everybody, welcome to 100 Club. Today we're going to be going through the rest of the cricket trading ebook that we started looking at on Wednesday, and then we're going to go and implement that information into today's test match if possible. So we'll go and get the book up and show you what we're looking at here. So this is where we sort of got up to, was strategies. We went through the test match betting checklist. So we'll just very quickly go through that again. So which country's the match in, which teams are playing, what's their recent record in the head-to-head, what time of year is it, current weather conditions, state of the pitch. We're going to have a look at all this when we do the game, because we know the answers. We know it's in England. We know it's the West Indies. Their recent record's pretty good. West Indies beat England twice in the West Indies, and they won the first test here, lost the second one. What time of year is it? Well, it's pretty getting to mid-season, so it's all right. Nothing really to worry about there. Current weather conditions. Well, it's very overcast near me, which is about an hour from the ground, but there's no rain about. So I think we're going to get a proper day's play today, but it's the next 4 days we've got to look at. State of the pitch, well, we'll find that out at about 20 to 11. Who won the toss? We'll find that out around 20 to 11 as well. And we'll find out what they choose to do. And then we'll discuss if we're going to back or lay first and where we're going to exit and is it value. So once we've got all of those things accounted for, we're going to be ready to trade. So Mighty Mike is about 15 minutes from Old Trafford, so he'll be able to give us weather reports there, and it'll be handy because if he can let us know throughout the next few days sort of which way the weather's coming from, it'd be handy if it's sort of going from his house to Old Trafford, because when it rains for him, we're going to get a 15-minute sort of advantage knowing that the weather's coming in. It can be really, really handy to have someone at the ground or very close to it. So what we might do is we might all chip in a couple of pound, buy Mike a beach chair and a blanket, and just send him to sit outside Old Trafford and report on his phone for us for the next 5 days what he's doing and how the weather's looking. He could send up weather balloons. So I think we can probably get a beach chair for like a tenner from Argos. We'll splash out and spend a $5 on the blanket, and we'll send him down to Old Trafford, and we'll just order pizzas and stuff for him for the next 5 days. What do you reckon, Mike? You up for that? You'll need more than a beach chair. Right, strategies. Let's have a look at some strategies. So very, very quickly, backing the side first in T20s is one of our general rules. I then look to exit after the first power play, which is the first 6 overs, and hopefully secure a profit. I would then look to use that profit to back the side batting second when they start their innings, and we'll usually see a drop in their price in the first 6 overs. So we did get some good news this morning. We got some confirmation that the IPL will begin on September 19th. And the final will be on November 8th. So when we get to September, we're going to have the IPL. Now, before that, I believe Australia are coming to England at the end of August. So that'll be great. So it's only going to be a few weeks till we've really got some T20 cricket to get our teeth into. So we'll have a good look at this first and work out what our plans are. Then when the cricket starts, we know what we're doing. So when you're looking to break down a T20 trade, a few things you've got to consider before you place a bet. Who's batting first, right? What's the usual pass score for the format on that ground? So if the pass score is 160, the batting side's got 120 balls to score 160. So that's around 1.33 a ball or 8 runs and over. We then look at what the average on this ground is for the first 6 overs and what the average is for the first 6 overs for that batting team. And I think we went through some of this last week. Actually, I'm recognising this, so I think we've done it. So I'll keep going. I seem to think we did. Did we look at test match strategies? Did we do this, or is this where we got up to? I don't think we've done this. So we're just going to start here, and it's pretty good that we've got a test match coming up. So in test matches, there's usually two main strategies. One involves laying the batting side and one the fielding side, depending on the conditions. When I lay the side batting first, we do this. We look at laying the team batting first, as there's no real downside most of the time. The team batting first in a test match is a great lay for a couple of reasons. Usually, like football, I keep saying to you, only three things can happen. Well, in cricket, usually only three things can happen to a team batting first in a test. Now, Mike, if you've got any comments on any of this or different opinions, please speak up. Like, just give us your opinion if you think that there's something different that I should be saying or putting in, because as you know a lot more about cricket, well, as much as I do, and I'm certainly not claiming to be a world expert on it, but this is what I do. So if you've got something to contribute, mate, just chip in. You're not going to be rude or anything, but this is just the way I see it. When a cricket game starts, usually only three things can happen to a team batting first in a test match. They can go very well on day one and be 300 for not many at the end of the day. I work on an average of 300 per day in a test match. That's 100 runs per session. And you'll find that should be around the average. Like, I find that in Australia. It might be a little less here, maybe 270, 280. But I just work on 300. They could also be all out for 200 before tea has been taken, which is the second break of the day. So they play in 2-hour sessions. So the game starts at 11 and they play till 1. Then they take a 40-minute break for lunch. Then they play from 1:40 to 3:40. And then they take a 20-minute break for tea. And then they play from 4 until 6. So they're your 3 sessions. So the third thing that can happen is they can be somewhere in between, say around 260 for 5 at the end of the day. So in the first scenario, say England bat first on day one and they score 300 for none. What will happen to their price? Most people would think that they, come in to odds on. Well, that wouldn't be correct. So looking back at the first Ashes test in 2009, the prices were as follows. England before the match were 360, Australia were 228, and the draw was 3.3. So what would happen if that was the case? If England batted all day and didn't lose a wicket, the draw would come in to about 1.5. England would be around 2.9 and Australia would be about 30. As it would seem, the pitch is a road and the only result will be a draw, as taking 20 wickets may just prove impossible. So as you can see, 360 to 290 is very little movement and very little risk. The second scenario of England being all out for 200 would see England's price shoot out to about 12. A great result for anybody laying first, and you can just exit that trade. Job done, money made. Now, the third scenario is the risky one. Let's say the score is 260 for 5. That says that runs are possible, but there's something in the wicket for the bowlers. So scores like this on day one usually see the match end with a result other than a draw. And more often than not, the team batting last loses, which in this case would be Australia. So laying England in that scenario would not have been the best move, but that's why we employ stop losses to get out, if it's not going right. If this scenario happened, England had come into about 180 with the draw at 8 and Australia 350. And that's not great if you've laid England at 3.6. But the advantage still lies with going against the side batting first, as 2 out of those 3 scenarios offer a profit, or at least a very small loss with the potential to move back into profit later in the game. So the third option would mean a small loss. So provided no more than 2 wickets fall before lunch, then you're looking at a profit. So you can, paper trade that one, but you can trade this one with me today, and we'll see how it goes. We'll put these strategies into play. But I can't stress enough that conditions on the day and at the time you make the trade are vital. Okay, but looking at the weather outside today, I think it might be a pretty decent day to lay the team batting first. It's good overcast cover. The only downside is if the West Indies bat first, they're pretty high. So we might opt for laying the draw in that case. Because if West Indies still lose a heap of wickets early, which is what you'd be wanting if you're going to lay the team batting first, then laying the draw will have just as good an effect for us, because the draw is going to move out every time wickets fall. So have a look at the conditions. As you know, the form of the teams is fairly good. If you read my email last night, you'll see the concerns that I have. West Indies haven't really rotated. So they're playing their third test in a very short space of time, and 5-day test at that level can be quite grueling. So England have rotated. One was out of necessity with Jofra Archer being suspended, but he'll probably come back. Jimmy Anderson will probably come back. I don't know if they'll keep Broad. Stokes may just be picked as a bowler because he did a groin strain, as a batsman, because he strained his groin. They might not risk him as a bowler, which means Broad might come back in. So we'll just see what England do. But you can just go and see. You'll see how later in the book how an opposite position can be taken by laying the fielding side as well, rather than laying the batting side. But the most important factor of any cricket match is the pitch, or the wicket, as it can be called. The pitch is correct. And so that needs to be considered before any decision. So once the cricket starts on TV, we need to be watching the pitch report, seeing what they're saying about it. So as the surface is the most important factor for betting, we need to look at that first, because before we can settle on a strategy, we need to get as much info on the pitch as we can get, how it looks for the game we're going to trade on, and what's happened on it in the most few recent games. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you got no email yesterday. Oh, don't tell me that. I'll just stand by for a minute and I'll go and see what happened. Please don't tell me that, because I'm pretty sure I sent it. Let's go and have a look. I'm just logging into it now, so messages. Oh, okay. I did send it, but not to you guys. Right. Well, that's easily fixed. Let me go and just do that now. Preview. So where was I? When I lay the fielding side first, okay, this will happen as opposed to the above strategy when we're certain through historical results and the prevailing immediate conditions showing us that this will be a great batting track. So Adelaide Oval, Brisbane, Wanderers in South Africa, for example. Stating earlier, looking at a betting perspective, unless the pitch is really green, covered in grass and there's rain threatening, I find it profitable to lay the fielding side. But that might not be the case today. It's just a case of seeing what conditions we've got. So if a team fails to take a wicket in the first hour, you'll make a nice profit, because a team that started the game at, say, 3 will be pretty close to 6 if they don't take a wicket in the first hour. The batting side will be around 40 or 50 for no loss, and a very big score will be on the cards, and the fielding side will drift. So I do this as opposed to just backing the batting side. Because what will happen, if a team gets off to a start of 50 or 60 for no wicket, the market takes the opinion that it's a great track to bat on. Therefore, the opposition should be able to bat just as well on it. And the fielding side will drift massively. The draw comes in a lot, but the batting side's price tends to stay where it was. So you've all got that email now. So there it is. We'll go through that in a minute. So on a good batting wicket with not much grass cover and nice sunny overhead conditions, we need to be laying the side fielding first. But we certainly don't have that today. We've got overcast conditions, and if this wicket's got some green on it, which it probably will, we'll want to be laying the batting side. So having a look quickly at 50 over ODIs, these games are designed to be sort of even contest, slight leaning towards the bat. Now, in an ideal situation, a team would get around 300, but it's a little bit more these days. I think now 50 over sides tend to think they should be getting 350 or sort of 400 in their scores. Both teams would feel that they've got a chance to win, if they get around 300. So the pitch and overhead conditions will determine what the toss-winning captain will do. And also at the time of the match, if it's an early morning start, they might still be a bit of dew around and they might decide to chase. Whereas in a day-night match, they might bat first in daylight and then want to bowl under the lights when the ball might swing around, do a bit more. So, yeah, look, I've written it here. For example, a match starting in England at 10 a.m. with heavy clouds on a green pitch would most certainly see the captain that wins the toss field first and look for early wickets. But a game starting at 2 o'clock in Australia for a day-nighter would see the captain winning the toss bat first to use the better seeing conditions of daylight to post a score and then get going from there. So, however, we do have exceptions to that as well, because in India and Sri Lanka, the night brings this heavy dew which covers the outfield, and after a few overs, the ball's a bar of soap, and you can't bowl with it. So you want to be bowling first in the drier day conditions and then bat at night when the wet wicket brings the ball on a bit better and makes it impossible to bowl. So the current Indian side will almost certainly bat second, because in Virat Kohli, they've got one of the best run-chasing captains in world cricket. He loves the chase. The current South African side are more comfortable setting a target, because with their strong batting lineup, and they'll then use their bowling strength to defend what's usually a really good target. Now, Australia have always chosen strong but well-balanced sides. They're comfortable batting or bowling first. They don't seem to mind what they do, and they'll just allow conditions to dictate what they decide. Now, obviously, you've only got a 50-50 chance of winning the toss, so around half the time, the decision's made for you by the other captain anyway. Now, England are much better at setting a total rather than chasing, and they have had many chasers come unstuck, panicking when in a comfortable situation. One exception was the World Cup before this one, when South Africa set them a mammoth 230, and England just approached it with a carefree attitude, as 99% of people didn't give them even half a chance in the T20 of getting that. But they rode their luck and they got the runs. It was probably their best ever T20 performance. So when we're looking at limited overs, this is your betting checklist. Which teams are playing? Is it a day game or a day-night game? What's the recent ODI score and their recent 3-year head-to-head? What's their head-to-head record against this team? What are the weather conditions? Is there the possibility of rain to reduce overs? Because what can happen, there's the Duckworth-Lewis system, and if there's a reduction in overs, it often means a reduction in score as well. So what's the average score on this ground in the past 10 ODIs, and what's the average of the two sides past 10 ODIs? Who won the toss? What do they choose to do? Are we backing or laying first? Where are we going to exit? Is the price value? Always looking for that. So once we've got all of them, we're ready to trade. Then finally in cricket, you've got the T20 strategy. So this is the most popular form of the game from a betting angle. Huge money goes on these games. You're going to see 50, 60 million bet on these IPL games. The game takes 3 hours to play, and it's a betting roller coaster. With the potential for a game to swing so much just on the outcome of one or two deliveries, it's really dangerous to trade, but it's a lot of fun too. And, you know, if you're on the right side of a swing, it's huge. You know, the difference between a 6 being hit and a wicket can be 50 or 60 ticks. And you'll see that happen. A guy will go for a massive shot and the market thinks it's going for 6. And so in go all the snipers and drive the price down. And then you see some miraculous catch with a guy hanging over the boundary, catches the ball, throws it back into his teammate. And instead of getting 6 runs, they lose a wicket. Well, you'll see a 50 or 60 tick swing right on that. So you've got to be really solid with your money management in these games and always expect and look at the worst case. So we're not looking at how much we're going to make. We're like, if this goes completely pear-shaped, how much am I going to lose here? So we're going to stick to that. You know, it's just going to be, it's easy enough to the money management. We just make the decision, right, well, if this goes completely wrong and I'm going to lose 50 quid, I'm happy with that. So that's the most I'm going to put into the market. And then, you know, if you just make that decision before the game, then you're not going to be betting 5% of your bank. You're going to be fine. So if we had a £2,000 bank, we can stick to £100 liability and you'll be fine with that. So I like to build a position during these games with a few trades. So I stick small, but I build rather than just take, like I do in a test match, I tend to take one position and sit on it rather than in and out, in and out. We saw, unfortunately, with Mike, the in and out of test match trading in the first test sort of brought him unstuck a bit, did much better in the second one. So with T20s, we do want to be in and out. There's massive swings every couple of overs in these ones. So I build that position up. I then try and, you know, lump that profit on a position. And so it eliminates any risk. So what I'll do when I'm going to have a decent bet is I'll build it and then I'll make my decision and I'll put all the money on one side, leaving zero on the other. So generally my worst case scenario is I'm going to come out even if I'm wrong and make a decent chunk if I'm right. But if the match is right in the balance and I can't decide, more than happy just to split it and just go, you know, say 100 either side and then just watch the game and enjoy it and don't care. So, you know, you've got to be confident when you start doing that because there's nothing worse than building up a nice position and then blowing it from over trading. So I think we saw someone do that in the horse racing room yesterday. They'd sort of done a few trades in a race, got a really nice position, and then decided to just go in for one more, and it just all came unstuck, betting a bit late. You know, you can make 5 great decisions in a match to build up that lovely green book, and then you blow it in one over-ambitious trade and be back to square one. It is sickening. You can always just bet a quarter or half of the profit if you feel you can improve on the position, but then at least if you're wrong, you get something. So we'll just learn as we go with them, and you'll get the feel for trading. So here's building a position on Pakistan. If I just go and try and make that a bit bigger for you. Okay, and I'll move it over here. You can see that I've backed at 187 and then I'm out at 162. And then I've backed at 152 and then I'm out at 110. Then I've backed at 120, out at 118. Then I've sort of scratched that at 108 and 109 there. And then I've laid for 3,000 at 110. Now, that's only a risk of 300, so don't be afraid at these very low prices. You know, you could do a trade for 300 there and you're only risking 30 quid. And then it goes up to 120. And then I did one final thing here of it's a £10,000 lay at 115. Now, it's only a liability of 1,500. That looks a lot of money, but we already had 1,100 in profit. So I was still only actually risking £400 out of my bank. So, you know, don't look at that £10,000 trade and faint. It's not. It's like effectively a £400 trade. And you build these positions so you can do these nice big chunky bets. And if I'd had a bit more profit in these earlier ones, this 1,500 trade could have been zero. So you're basically putting all the 1,500, you're putting England back to zero here and 10 grand on Pakistan. But, you know, Pakistan aren't going to win the game, so you've still got to trade out. So we trade out at 1.24, and then you've got a nice profit there. So Mike's written, so it's worth noting for those who know nothing about cricket, and it's just a personal thing I do in one day, and to a lesser degree T20, it's worth 25 runs or so getting the runs on the board batting first. I'd rather have them than get them. So that's just a general thing in cricket. You'll hear the commentators say that a lot. You know, that they might think that par for the wicket is, say, 180, and a team comes up with 165. And Adam Gilchrist says it a lot. He says, yeah, we thought it was 180, but you could see it was a little bit tricky. And on this wicket, I'd rather be the team with the runs on the board because we've already got them. They're going to have to work really hard to get them. And now we know how the wicket's playing. We can bowl to those conditions and make it even harder for them to get the runs. So if you ever hear a commentator or myself or Mike talking about runs on the board, that's what we mean. It means, well, we've done the work. We've got them. They're up there on the scoreboard. You've still got to go out and get them. And now we know so much more about the wicket. We think we can make it pretty difficult for you. So that's what we're talking about in that situation. It can be a bit more difficult under lights chasing. But having said that, sometimes if the pitch has a bit of dew on it, it can make the ball come through a little better. And that makes it a little easier to bet on, so to bat on. So that's what, you know, we think about batting sort of second. It's got pluses and minuses. So trading out, there are times you find yourself in a great position and the team you've backed to be in a great position to win the game. You might find yourself with a choice similar to the one I had there, where if England beat, I'll win 869 if England beat Pakistan and lose 1,000 if they don't. And with their current price being 108, that means they're a 92.5% chance. So as it stood, I had a 92% chance of winning 869, or I could trade out at 108, which means laying England, betting against them, right? And that would mean I'd win 724 no matter the result. So the two choices were this. And I'll ask you guys what you would do here. If I gave you right now a 92% chance of winning 869 or a 100% chance of winning 724, which one do you want? David would take the 100. Bernard, Mike, John, you're all taking B. Yeah, it's pretty easy when you're looking at it on a screen, isn't it? But these are the decisions that you're going to make. Now, inside all of us is a punter, and I'm trying to instill in you a trader. And I can promise you that when you are faced with this situation, a little punter on your left-hand shoulder will say, don't get out of this. We're 92% chance. There's no way we're going to lose this game. You're going to get 869 quid. Don't throw away £140. Just stay with it, mate. We're all right. And the trader on your right will just go, you know, you can just take 720 now, mate, and walk away. We don't care what happens. This is cricket. Anything can happen. Teams get beat in the IPL from 101 every season. Take the money. And you'll have this little conflict. And this is what I was talking to Steve Ward about in that interview. Do you remember when I said about the goal? Well, I'm going to apply what I said in the interview to the same thing. What I would have said to Steve in this situation is, I've got a chance of winning 869, and then I decide to trade out and I take the 724, but then option A goes on to win. Why do I feel that rather than winning 724 and being happy, I feel like I've just lost 140 quid? And the way I deal with that, if this was to happen to me today, this situation, I would take the 724 and turn the game off. I don't want to know the result. All I know is I've won 724. It's a bit like football. When a goal goes in, you've got the money. So they can't take it back. It's these positions here that do my head in, that used to do my head in, because I'd be overjoyed at winning 724 normally. But now I find myself thinking, well, you had a 92% chance. You've just virtually chucked away 140. But hey, look, it happened yesterday in the positive. Remember that game I did yesterday morning in the football? I did the under 2.5 goals, and there was an early goal. And because I was about to do a webinar, I traded out and I took the £20. Well, yeah, if there were 3 goals in that first half, I could be looking at that now and going, oh, I could have won 500, but I took 20. But instead I'm looking at it now going, oh, I'm really happy I took the 20 because I would have lost 50 because it didn't come in. So there's both ways of looking at it. And you've just got to come to terms with the fact that you didn't lose 140 quid here. You made 724. So you're virtually giving up 17% of your possible profit to lock in and guarantee a certain win. So I've been in this position loads of times over the last 10 years. So Graham's just saying he backed Juventus yesterday and he traded out when they led 1-0 and they lost 2-1 at full time. Yeah, I laid the draw really, really late in that. I was sitting down on the sofa and I thought, oh, Juventus will score a late goal, a bit like Arsenal and Celtic. They always do. And then I saw it suspend and I thought, there's the goal. And it was Udinese that saw it. Oh, they scored it. And I'm like, well, nobody saw that coming. So that was interesting. But that's the good thing about goals rather than backing a team. When you're betting on goals, you've got both teams running for you, whereas if you back a team, you need them to score. So, yeah, I can tell you that you're much better off taking the 724 in T20 cricket. Plenty of sides lose from being in a position similar to that. If that happens, you not only lose the 869 profit you've built up, you lose the 1,000 on the other side as well, meaning a difference in your trading account of nearly $2,000. And that's a heartbreaking turnaround for a risk that didn't need to be taken after being in such a strong position. The damage you do psychologically when you lose 1,000, when you could have won over 700, just can't be underestimated. It's huge. So New Zealand did it 3 times this year. In January 2020 against India, they traded 104 or below in 3 games in a row, and they lost all of them. It was unbelievable. I don't think you'll see that again. They were at home in the series. They had incredible scores. They had India in all sorts of trouble, traded 104 or below, and they lost all of them. And England did it in February this year against South Africa as well. They lost from a position it just seemed impossible to lose from. So if you take away the emotion of the game and forget for a second the possibility of winning the 869, and I just said to you, would you like it more if I gave you 724 right now, no questions asked, there's the money, or you can have 869 in 2 hours' time, but you may have to pay me 1,090. It's only an 8% chance you'll have to do that, but you may have to pay me that if it goes wrong. Which one do you want? And I can guarantee 100% of people in this room will say, just give me the 724. I know which one you'll take, and nearly all of you will take the sure thing as well. But sometimes when we're betting, we tend to put blinkers on and get a bit caught up in the game, and what might be possible later rather than what's reality right now. So the cricket's just come on and the covers are off, but it's looking very, very overcast. So I'm not sure if you're having a look at your TV, put it onto Sky 404 and have a look at the state of Andrew Strauss in this red suit with a white shirt and tie and black shoes. He looks like Santa Claus that's been on a diet and had a shave. It's obviously something to do with his wife's breast cancer appeal thing like Glenn McGrath does, but geez, they look ridiculous. Right, anyway, so don't put the blinkers on. Just keep a calm head and look at what you can take now, not what might happen. Try not to do that and just keep an eye on your position and what can happen if it goes pear-shaped. Remember, focus on the downside. How much do I lose if this goes wrong? Hang on, we've got a toss. Let's see what's going on here. Hold the phone. West Indies won the toss. West Indies bowling. England batting. So they're going to be batting last, West Indies. Alzari Joseph, who I mentioned in our email, he's not playing. He's injured. They're saying he's not injured. They've just made a tactical change, horses for courses, and the like of the pitch, they've brought the spinner in. We'll just wait for Joe Root, see what he says and if there's any team changes. England's price will probably have drifted a little bit now from the 179 they were just before the toss. So here comes Joe Root. So Sam Curran's out, Zach Crawley's out, Jofra Archer comes in, Anderson comes in. So they've gone Anderson, Broad and Jofra Archer, which means pretty well means Ben Stokes won't be bowling. Everyone moves up one. So I'm going to go and put a lay in on England at 177. I might see if I can be sneaky here and get 176. There's no money at 176, so I should be able to get that. Right, let's get back to it. Where are we? Right, England will be batting. So let's get this wrapped up in the next 20 minutes so we can trade some cricket. So, yeah, just try and keep an eye on what we're doing here. So looking at recovering a bad position. So don't be afraid to admit quickly that you've made a mistake and trade out of an open position and reverse it. You may have gone with the side batting first and backed them and they lose a wicket in the first over or 2 wickets in the first over and your plans are shot to bits. You know, so you can see here I backed Sillett for 500 at 2.8 and after a couple of deliveries I could see the wicket was not at all what was forecast and I immediately bailed for the trade. Fortunately, I got out at the 280 to break even. I then started laying them at 290 and a bit low at 276 and then a bit bigger bet at 280. And they started falling in a heap quickly on the dodgy pitch and I was able to exit at 680 and lock in a profit. And meant no matter who won, I'd made that profit. And instead of a £500 loss, had I just stayed with the original decision and just let it crumble, I'd ended up making 500. So that's like £1,000 turnaround just from making a smart decision. So don't hesitate if what you're seeing is a long way from what we're expecting. It'll cost you badly in the long run. So looking at price fluctuations, you'll be surprised how often they rise and fall during a game. If you drew a line of a match starting price and drew it straight across, you'll be amazed how often it swaps over. Now, I do this a lot. I've done this on Twitter a lot over the last few years, and you'll see me do it over the next 6 months. So one way of trading cricket is wait until it moves one way and then either back it or lay it with the presumption it will hit that starting price again at some point because it happens so often. Something like this. So you see here where it starts at 225 and they go up. And then when it starts to level out up here, you back them because it nearly always comes back down to that starting price. And then it went through it and then it goes up again. So you can do the same thing again and it comes back. We don't have to decide here which way it's going to go. We can wait till it goes and then move. Yeah, I think they've suspended it because it's gone in play now. I think they consider it in play now, Bernard. No, they've turned it off again. So I've had a little result. I've laid them at 176 and they're 178. I can take an £8 profit now before they already move. Yeah, Scott's done the same. Did you get 176, Scott? I got 176. Yeah. So we'll see where they are. I think you've got to stay in for the first couple of overs because on these conditions, if England lose a wicket, we could get out at, 180, 190 and have a really nice sort of book there. But I don't think I'm going to panic to get out of this today because I'm expecting 4 days of rain. I think the best chance for England to win this match with the rain the way it is, they had to get the West Indies batting first today. They had to get 8 or maybe 10 of those wickets today because they've got the batting power to score really quickly and get a lot of runs fast, as we saw with Stokes and Butler. So they're obviously going with Butler again. So what they've done now is given themselves, I think we're in a great position laying England because England are going to bat all day today. And if they don't, happy days for us. We've made a fortune if England don't bat all day in day one. Now, that leaves them 4 days to get 20 West Indies wickets. And it's going to rain on all 4 of those days at some point. They'll be on and off. All right, Wendy, I'll see you later. So they're 181 now, so it's starting to filter around what's happened and the market's starting to move. So that's good. Let's see where we are now. So now I've made a profit of 31. It's 1.82 now. But we'll just see. Let's finish this and then we'll go and have a look at it. So, yeah, we'll see lots of movements like this. Now, the completed match market, this is unique to cricket markets. Okay? The rules change every now and then, so you've got to see what the current playing conditions are. But what happens in a cricket match is if the match is not completed, then it's only one-day cricket. This doesn't affect Test cricket. But in ODIs and T20s, if the match is not completed, the match odds are void. So you need to be aware that if we do a trade, like here, I've done a trade on, I'll make it bigger, Sydney Thunder and Brisbane Heat. I'm going to win £60 either way. But will the match be completed or not? And so down here, if this no is the result, if no wins, then this is all void. So if this match was now washed out, I'd get nothing here, but I'd win £30 here. Now, if the match is completed, I'm going to win £60 up here and 30 down here. So if we get a nice position in a one-day game, we'll often go and put it into this situation down here so that if it is washed out, we get our money back. So it's important that we understand the rules. There's been several times I've been in a good green position and it started to rain. Of course, that means the players come off and play stops. Sometimes they don't get back on, the game's abandoned. This means, as I've just said, all match odds markets are void. So all money's returned. My nice green position just evaporated into thin air. So what you can do if you've got a green book, let's say you've made 170 on both sides. I like to go and take a position in the completed match market. So we'll just go and show that. So you see, you can see in the top half of this picture below, I'm going to win 294 on no and a liability of 361 if it's yes. The current state of play, though, is they're off the field for rain. And at 108, they've only got about a 12% chance of getting back on. As long as they stay off the field, I can hold that position because as it stands, there'll be no further play and I won't be getting my hands on the 170 in the match odds. But I will be winning 294 if they don't come back on. If they start to take the covers off and the pitch looks like we'll get further play, I can trade out of the position, make it green either way for 150. And then if the match is complete, I'd get the 150 plus the 170. So you see here, we've got a position down here, Bangladesh, of 209 for yes and 209 for no. All right, so if there's clouds overhead and there's rain, be smart and take the insurance. Right, so looking at the tie, it's another interesting market that can be played is the tied match market. There's only 2 outcomes. Is it 186 now? We've made £55 now, profit before a ball's bowled. Happy days, you beauty. We'll get to that in a minute. So there are two outcomes, yes and no. Once again, cricket markets, if Betfair's a tie, match odds bets are void. All right, so the prices for 99% of games will be 50-1 and no will be 102, as of course not many games end in a tie. But if you built a great position up for the sake of 2% insurance, basically you're going to win 100 quid. So if you go and lay it for 100 quid at 102, you're only giving away £2 of that profit. And then if it is a tie, you're still going to win £98. So it's just great insurance. So watching cricket, usually it's not crucial to have, super fast pitches for cricket, test matches particularly, like we need in horse racing. So if I'm watching a game on Sky, I'm about 4 seconds behind the guys that are watching on a stream like Bet365. But test matches, you just sort of make your moves as they happen and, it meanders along. It starts to get exciting around day 4 or 5. But, it's like the very best way to trade a T20 game is to be in the crowd, or better still, if you have someone there relaying the outcome. So we might have to send Mike along to Old Trafford. And despite what people are telling you, this court side is neither illegal or immoral. Because if you knew a car was going to be sold really cheaply because you had a guy sitting in the car dealer's office and you were one of the very first people to know the information, what's wrong with being on the phone to your mate and saying, mate, this car's been put up for sale at $5,000, and you tell him that 20 seconds before the car goes live on the internet? There's nothing illegal or immoral there. It's just smart. And the smarter you are, the more money you make. If you're worried about morals or being fair, then sports betting, it is not the game for you. In the racing markets, I know who I'm up against and how many I'm up against, and you've got to be ruthless. You've just got to not worry, if I win this, someone else will have to all that. We're there to make money. James, I'll turn your microphone off, mate. I don't know what happened there, but something loud started crackling in my ear. So it's just fastest finger first, smartest trader first. So if we'd hesitated on this trade, we'd now, we'll go and lay England, we'd now be laying at 187 instead of 176. So all we've done is be smart. We just saw the toss and went, well, this is what's going to happen, so get in now. And it's like dog eat dog. So, yeah, bookies, bookies make their living by being faster than us. So we've cottoned onto that and thought, well, if we can be faster than the bookies, then we make it. It's fastest finger first, smartest trader first. It is dog eat dog. And like us just now, those with the quickest information get the biscuits, and we all love biscuits. We all love our biscuits. So as long as you understand you're about 10 seconds behind the smart guys if you're watching on TV, it's not always a bad thing. So, the best thing we could do here, literally, is particularly for a one-day game, is have Mike sitting in the ground, just on the phone to me, just saying like wicket, and we, bang, you put the bet on, because he'll see it about 8 seconds before we see it on TV. Doesn't mean you'll get your bet in first, because the market makers have still got someone at the ground and they don't have the in-play delay that we have. So they're still going to beat us. Anyway, so it's not always a bad thing. We've got our entry and exit points worked out beforehand. So even if other traders drive the price up before we see a ball bowled on the TV, it doesn't matter, as we often get an even better price when we exit. So if it goes up or down, we just take our exit. Job done. So look, some in-play situations. Here's a few that we've had over the years. Pakistan took a position on England pre-game at 187, and the first power play traded out at 182. They kept going, looked like a big score, so I went in again at 152 and then traded out at 110. So this is a screenshot you saw before. Then they lost a wicket, went to 120, so I backed them again, and Pakistan started to bat. So I laid England at 118, thinking Pakistan would start well. They didn't. So I traded out at 108, waited for another chance or a possible recovery. Once the two batsmen settled in, I went in again and did an England lay at 108, 109 and 110. Pakistan hit some quick runs, traded out at 120 for a profit, and then I took stock of that situation. England came back to 115, so I took all the profit so far plus a further risk of, 500. And when they went out to 124, I took the exit, and that was the end of the game. So 120.15 to 124 is just a 9-tick movement, and they happen a lot in T20 games. So at these low prices, especially when you've got a decent profit, you can use that to build a position and improve your trade with only a risk to your potential profit. So in an Australia-New Zealand game, typical match with both sides traded. Started by backing New Zealand. They were batting, and they went from 260 to 212. Then in the middle overs, they struggled, as we discussed, and they went to 4.3. So I placed a lay bet, went up a little bit, but not a lot. So I traded out a few ticks higher. When Australia batted, they were 115. I felt that was too short after having seen New Zealand struggle on that same wicket. Nothing happened immediately, so I got out a tick high, but then I went in again at 127 after a wicket. They went to 141, and I bailed out. So at that point, I was looking at a win of 517 should New Zealand win, or taking 355 and making no difference who won. After one more wicket, I went in at 170, and after a further wicket, Australia were in trouble, so I closed the trade at 296, evened up the hedge with a lay, and then the profit was locked in no matter who won the game. All right, so one more, Bangladesh and Netherlands. Bangladesh was short at 126, and they'd been involved in some close games. So I laid them at 126. Netherlands had been in some close games. They weren't pushovers. They'd beaten England as well. I traded 126 and out at 151. After that, I laid 148 and closed it at 155. And my third and final trade was lay at 151 and out at 153. The price jumped up on me a bit. I got 157. So that locked in a profit of 119. So that's great considering the initial investment was only £130. So it made 91% return, which is great. That's all you need to do. So the reason I showed you those games is nothing to do with the amounts of the bet size. That's not important. Your stakes and bet sizes are only relevant to you, but it shows what can be done with small price movements if you do it several times when the opportunity's there. And also we look at getting it wrong and taking a loss. So sometimes they're up to 192 now, England. So we've made £81 already. Wow. I'm going to go and trade out of this in a minute, I think. I don't know what to do. I'll let the group decide in a minute. So here I am in a trade between Zimbabwe and Hong Kong, two teams I admittedly don't know a lot about. I laid Zimbabwe for 1,000 using two £500 lays at 129 and 130, and it went against me. So I used a technique called averaging, whereby I laid them again at a lower price of 108 for 1,000, meaning an extra liability of only 80 quid. So now my whole liability is 375. What it means is, though, I don't need the price to get above 129 to show a profit. I only needed to get back to 119, so a much healthier position. So I set my target exit at 140, meaning should I get there, I'll win 300 and close the trade. But the match was not really coming back to me. I didn't know how long I could hold faith in Hong Kong, so I traded out when it went up 2 ticks to 110. So then when it came back to 105, 107, I laid again and was planning on chipping away. I only needed it to get to 116 to get even. It went to 113 and it just wouldn't go above it. So I took my medicine and just traded out for a loss of 35 quid. Much healthier than had I just traded out at that price in the first picture, which would have been a loss of 113. So the reason is once you add lays of 105, 107, 108, you get an average of just under 116. So now it's as if my lay went in at 116 and I'm exiting at 113. I've only actually lost 3 ticks. It's a far better position than just trading out for a loss. 195. It's back at 192 for me. On this occasion, I had to take the loss, but it's only small. It didn't really do a whole lot of damage. So getting it wrong and flipping a decision to make it right, sometimes we make a poor initial decision and we have to reverse it. I backed England, made an initial exit and a winning trade in the game against South Africa, but it became apparent South Africa were going to run down the 171. So I had to trade out, and then I laid England and took the exit as South Africa were cruising. So I sort of flipped the position. So you see here I've ended up backing them to start, then traded out and then flipped it and laid them and then traded out and then laid them again at 410 and out and turned a losing position into a win. So it happens a lot. You know, we did it in the BPL as well. So looking at a conclusion, what I find happens a lot in T20 games, the starting price is often met more than once in a game. So a couple of things we can do to take advantage of it. Have a look at the graphs, and the one thing they all have in common, no matter which way the price moved, it came back. So you can see that graph again where it goes up and down and up and down. So you can see the market moves against us, but then it turned back and went back to 2 going through our price. So it just goes up and forward a lot in these T20 games. So we're going to have a look at this. If you don't have the cricket book and you want to get it, let me know and we'll get it sorted. But you can look here at these graphs. I'll make this bigger. You can see how often they return, no matter which way they go. So that one went up and came back through its starting price, and then it went down and came back again. This one went down, went back through it, up, went down, and ended up coming back through it. And this one just sort of sat on it all the way, just kept coming back, went up, came back to it, went up, came back to it. So it really does happen a lot. It's the same sort of thing here. All right. So it looks like the players are coming out onto the field now, getting ready to start. So in a T20 game, we're not going to panic if the price initially goes against us. All right. We're just going to stay and maybe look to consolidate it or go in again and get a better average price. So when it, you know, this is how it looks when it works nicely. So we've laid Mumbai at 169, an exit at 186, and then we've laid them again at 220, out at 246, and the job's done. And we're also going to look over the next few months at looking value. Yeah, Scott, that's another strategy in T20. You just lay both sides at 1.6. That happens a lot. Are we up to 197? We are. We've made £105 on this trade. I'll show you it in a minute. This was a whole new format, you know, with the T20. India, when it first started, yeah, we'll look at this game, India playing Australia. After performing poorly in the test matches in Australia, which we spoke about the other day, India are terrible away from home. But T20, it's a whole different format. They look superb. So when Australia were at 126 against them, the market was basing that on the test results, and this was a whole different game. So I laid Australia at 126, got out at 151. India started their innings. I backed them at 325, and after a few overs, they were 294, and I made the exit. So 2 very simple trades, profit of 58 quid, based purely on what we thought was value, rather than, you know, Australia was too short and the wrong price. So the perfect trade, when it all goes right, this is just how it looks, where I backed Perth when they batted at 1.5 and took an exit at 103. And then I laid Perth when Melbourne batted at 252 and took an exit at 580, profit at 227. And whilst they don't all go that way, this is your perfect game. 2 trades, both go well, job done. So there we go. There's some videos there to have a look at, which we'll watch over the coming months, and some other links to information and stuff like that. So that was the cricket trading ebook. We'll go and have a look at Google Chrome here. And where am I going? Share. We'll go and have a look at this trade we've got. So we're up here. We could take 109 now if we like. So what I could do is, there's 114. I'm going to go and take that. So I've just taken the 114. So I've laid them at 176, and I'm out at 198. So what I'm going to go and do is I'm going to go and lay England for 114, 116. I'm going to go and lay them for 116.66 at 2, which I should now get right. So there's my position. Okay, I'll just make that a bit bigger. I'm sure you can see it, but let's do it anyway. So here's my position now. And before the match starts, we've got 228 on the draw, 228 West Indies, and 0 on England. So we're already can't lose any money. So what I'm hoping now is that this draw starts coming right down. Let's say it comes down to 140. Then what I would do, and I might even just go and put it in now. So 1.4, if I go and lay that for, say, let's look at 150, 160, getting close, 165, 166.5. Right, I'm going to put that draw bet in at 1.4. Oh, it's just gone in play. So that'll just stay there now. So now I don't really need to watch the match. If the draw price, look at England 210, I got out a bit quick. Lads. Oh, dear. So I could still go and do the same thing. I could go and take 119 now. So I might go and do that. Let's go and take the extra. I'll get out of that trade again. I'll make another fiver. So there we go. 119.76 made before play. But I think I really want to be against England for these first few overs. 214 now. So if any of you guys are still in, maybe just stay in for a bit, because if they lose wickets in this first 10 overs, that's a huge drift. So let's go and have a very quick look at that. You can see here, this drift here, we got in around 176. We got here, and they've just virtually gone straight up. But they're about to start play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this recording now so that people don't have to watch a 4-hour recording later. So that's sort of the end of our lesson there. So Brisbane Broncos playing Melbourne Storm, and it looks like Melbourne have scored after less than a minute. So it's flying up to 212. So I'm going to go and see if I can lay them for 100, 110, 109. That'll do. Right, I'm laying England back to 0 at 212. I know it's gone to 214, but I might just get it here. So I'm going to have 0 on England and probably 120, 228. We'll have a look in a minute. Not much swing there. So we'll see England start coming back. So I'm going to go and stop this recording anyway. And I'll catch you over the weekend. Bye for now.